And Table 71 started 10 years ago, and it started at the same time that I was called to come and work at the National Christian Foundation. Same time. And it was at the at the Amsterdam conference on world evangelization in 2000. And there were 1,500 people attending that conference. It lasted 5 days, all Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And a group of people had been sitting around the same table because they all stayed with the same table for the whole week so they'd get to know each other and so on. It just happened to be people like Steve Douglas, president of Campus Crusade, Avery Willis, Bob Creason, Roy Peterson. If you don't know those names, we've just named through Wycliffe. And then of all things, YWAM. Now, do you know what YWAM is? Youth with a Mission. It happens to be the largest mission organization in the world and made up primarily, used to just be youth. And it's a very charismatic group, you see. Well, now think of what I just told you. A man who is a dedicated Southern Baptist and has been that on the mission field, Avery Willis. Steve Douglas, president of Campus Crusade, tutored by Bill Bright. And there were other ministries. It added up to 8. Well, they began meeting in the year 2000, then following that. And they meet 3 and 4 times a year, sometimes 4, most of the time 3. They've been meeting, trying to learn now. I'm about to tell you the most important thing that I'm going to tell you here today. And that is they began to love each other around that table that week and to get to know each other. And they were being asked how many would their organization take, or how many would an individual take if there was just an individual there, of the unreached people groups, and take responsibility to reach the unreached people groups that don't know the Lord. And they got up to 123 that had been taken, and nobody else volunteered. And the people around this table that I'm telling you about, it was Table 71. That was the number of the table. So they named their network Table 71. So nobody would ever hear of it, and they've been meeting all these 10 years. And what they were trying to do is learn how to collaborate together. Now, please hear me. Give me your heart now. As my pastor says now, are you listening? All right, are you listening? They have learned how to love each other and to cooperate with each other and to share resources and to second missionaries and people. Some, they work on projects together. They raise funds together. They have worked together, and they were working to try to figure out and discover how they could complete the Great Commission. And they have come up with a plan. And I have gotten to be a part of that. 3 years ago, they asked me to become a part of it. And I began to challenge those men and women, to challenge them about the fact that they needed to find a way to put what they were doing in a plan to complete the Great Commission. January a year ago, they were able, I was in the meeting in Kona in Hawaii with them. And we put together the plan, and it works. It does work. And it's going to call for thousands of people to be called. But let me encourage you at this fact, there is a way to do it. It can be done. I don't have time to tell you everything I'd like to tell you, but I want to tell you just one illustration of this. 2 young men took some training for 3 months, and then they went to an African nation, and then went out in the bush. These people have no written language. And they learned how by listening to them and talking to them. These were educated young men that went out there. And they began teaching them, and they tell stories, and they were taught to tell stories of Jesus. And they had 7 people at the end of 1 year that accepted the Lord, 7. Out of those 7, that's all. They had to leave because they had family problems that occurred back home, and it called them home, and so they had to leave. A year later, Campus Crusade sent somebody in to see what had happened to that church. 7 people. It had multiplied. There were 7 churches. All in that tribe, all of them had 7 each. But it doesn't stop there. Let me tell you what happened. I talked to this young man. I've heard him tell me this story. His grandmother brought him to me so I could hear it, because he was one of the ones that it just took 3 months of training to learn how to do what we're talking about. And he said when they went back the next year, after a whole year later, there were not only 7 churches, but they had sent people out to all the tribes around them, and they thought they were just all it could be would be 7. So there could be 7 churches with 7 people in them, and then whenever they get that far, well, that tribe would send out other people, and they're still doing that. I mean, the gospel spreads this way, but it's all being done with stories. The Bible is being storied, and that's how ION was born. And ION is International Orality Network. And I work closely with them because they are doing conferences all over the world, teaching people how to chronologically story the Bible. Wycliffe is beginning to do translation by doing storying. And now, rather than it taking 10 to 15 years, in just a few months, they can get the Bible where they can communicate it to an unreached people group. Isn't this amazing? It's absolutely amazing. And the largest people groups, Table 71 has organized, and they now have been able to reach the largest unreached people groups, the top 639. And that's from 100,000 population all the way up to 20 million. And they're reaching those. They have somebody in there. And the goal is to get all the rest of the 2,252 unreached people groups with a witness in all of those groups all over the world. It is believed by the people that lead Table 71 that within 10 to 15 years, the whole world can have heard the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, I've got to close. I've got a whole lot. I could talk all day, you understand that. So y'all got me started. It's your fault. But now, let me say this. The National Christian Foundation and I had an idea, meeting with the Table 71. Why don't the donor people begin to meet together and collaborate together? And why don't they begin to learn to trust the people in ministry? And they get together and begin to collaborate. And if the big donors will do that, folks, if they'll do it, it can come to a tipping point where all of us can contribute and help do it. Well, the president of our foundation now caught this vision. I kept preaching it to him, telling him. They kept saying, "Druce, we're not in that kind of business. We're not in that kind of business. We just help the donor, I said, I know that. But I took him to one of the meetings where I was chairing the meeting with Dr. Steve Douglas, and we had all donors there and trying to figure out how we could get this thing started. Well, at the end of that meeting, I told them we were going to just get quiet because we were going to all get angry during the day because people that have a lot of money, they're upset. Did you know that? Now, let me tell you why they're upset. They don't know who to give to. They don't know who they can trust. And they don't know how to hear back what's happening. If you got a ministry and people are giving you donations, let those people know what you're doing. They need to hear the bad, the good, and the ugly. They need to hear from you. But anyway, as this took hold, David Wills, our president, raised his hand at the other end of the table. And we knew that we needed somebody who would be a neutral person to begin to get involved with this, try to figure it out. See, we don't have a plan. We're trying to figure out what God wants done. Well, he has been doing that now for a year and 3 months. He will be going to the Lausanne Conference on World Evangelization in 2 weeks. And let me tell you what's happened, and I'll close. At Lausanne, there will this year be over 200 mega donors that have come because this has started. And they are going to be there, and they're coming to hear what Table 71 is doing. And these are people, 60% of them are from the U.S., but let me tell you what, 40% of these wealthy people are from the 1040 window. And they're coming to try to learn how to cooperate together to give. And can I tell you one more thing? I have the privilege of knowing a man. His name is Alan, and his wife is, I won't even go into that, Catherine, I'll tell you her name. Alan and Catherine, hard-working people. He's an engineer. He came up with some good ideas and works with atomic energy plants now. But he's in his 40s. His little company that he started with his wife is now worth some $300 million. A year and a half ago, he put 99% of that company's value at the National Christian Foundation. And we have from $1 to more $1 million that come in there every week. I mean, every year. I mean, excuse me, I'm getting it right. Every month from that company now. And he's living on $134,000 a year, has 6 children, and he is saving money. He is saving money to send his kids to college and for his own retirement. He said the money has become a curse in our country, and people need help. I've had him give this testimony in meetings I've been in like this. And people need help to understand what is happening to us in our country. Money is ruining us. The crisis we're in financially in this country now can turn out to be a great blessing, folks. And you can say amen to that. Amen. I know you don't like it. I don't either. Well, I lost everything I had in our retirement program with this recession. Everything. I mean, zero. And did you know the Lord sent a man into my life? And he has already set up a trust to provide for us so I can continue working. I really believe in Jesus. And I know you wouldn't be here if you didn't. But get your act together and let God use you and use you now. Thank you very much.